Welcome back, designers. In today's tutorial, we're going to be talking about pixel modifying tools. Pixel modifying tools make edits directly to the original image layers. These tools do what is called destructive editing because it makes it a little bit harder to edit your mistakes down the line if you're making edits directly to the original image layer. We're going to be talking about the differences between destructive and non-destructive editing in this class. But this challenge is all about using pixel modifying tools and doing destructive editing. So without further ado, we're going to get started by downloading the Destructive Tools Challenge template, which looks like this. It has 9 artboards and 1 layer per artboard. We're going to get started with the spot healing artboard. So I'm going to click on the layer that says acne, and I'm going to zoom in on this layer using my zoom tool. Your job is very easy for this particular challenge. For the spot healing artboard, all you have to do is try to eliminate as much acne on the model's face as possible. To do so, we are going to be accessing our pixel modifying tools in tool number 8 on our toolbar. From here, you're going to right click on tool number 8 and you guys are going to see several different healing tools. These are tools that are used mainly to do facial corrections and corrections to the skin and things of that nature. We're going to select the one called Spot Healing Brush. From here, all I have to do is click on top of the areas where there are damages. If you cannot see your brush in large size like I can, what you'll want to do is go in the options bar and increase the size. So mine is set to around 180 pixels, which is perfect. If yours is this tiny, it's not going to let you select large areas to correct. So you're going to want to increase the size. You want it to be large enough that you can cover a blemish completely. Now what you want to avoid with this tool is dragging like this. It may seem like you're saving time, but what it's going to result in is a really ugly, unnatural looking scar. So I'm going to Control Z to go back. And to correct the rest of our acne, all I'm literally going to do is click on top of each of the blemishes. When I click on top of the blemishes, you guys will see that they are going to go away. Photoshop is basically using its technology to clone the skin and the texture of the skin underneath it. And while there are areas that are a little bit inconsistent from a distance, you can pretty much see that we did some pretty severe corrections here and the acne is mostly gone. So while I could have obsessed about this little patch right here, I'm not going to do so. I'm going to be moving on to my next challenge because I completed my challenge. I got rid of the acne. I'm going to use my hand tool so that I can pan across this document. And now I'm going to be working on the remove challenge. As you can see, the model in this photo has quite a lot of tattoos. Your job is to try to eliminate as many of her tattoos as possible. We're going to be using a fairly new tool in our toolbar here. So I'm going to right click on tool number 8 again, and I'm going to be selecting the second one called remove. With the remove tool, what it does is it basically will go and select different areas that you may want to get rid of. And Photoshop is going to try to clone the texture of the skin and the color of the skin very, very closely. So with that being said, I want to try to remove as many of these tattoos as possible. I'm going to try to do the smaller pieces first. So I'm going to lower my brush size just slightly. And this is going to work very similar to the spot healing brush tool where I want to avoid dragging at all costs and I just want to go and click on top of the areas that I want to get rid of. So I'm starting with this flower tattoo here. I'm going to click on top. You can see it's highlighted in pink. Presto. It's like she never got inked in the first place. So it works extremely well. You can see there's very little patchiness. Again, don't drag. Don't do this because doing that is going to result in it looking a little bit sloppy and a little bit more jagged. Let me just go and cancel that. Instead, I just want to go and very carefully go over the areas that are tattooed just by pressing on top. This is going to take you guys several different attempts, but you need to be patient because Photoshop is using its AI technology to try to clone the texture of the skin and the color of the skin, so it does take a little while sometimes. Be patient. But you can see so far I've gotten rid of 2 of the tattoos here. So I'm avoiding doing that larger one only because it's going to be a little bit more time consuming, but you can go ahead and get started with a larger one first if that's what you want to do. Alright designers, as you can see I basically removed most of the tattoos that this model had on her arm. If I look very closely, there are some inconsistencies right over here where in dragging the tool it kind of created some weird textures, but again, I'm not going to focus on the mistakes as much. I completed my mission, which was to try to get rid of all the tattoos that she had on her arm. So I'm ready to move on to the next challenge. For the next challenge, I'm going to focus on using the patch tool, and I'm going to select the balloon layer. My job is to basically try to get rid of the balloon, make it look like the balloon was never there. I'm going to right click on tool number 8 again, and I'm going to select the 4th tool from the top, which is patch tool. With the patch tool, you're able to select large areas in the image that you can get rid of. With the patch tool, I'm going to go and drag a selection around the balloon. It doesn't have to be a perfect selection. When I see the marching ants, I'm basically using the same tool and dragging over to the sky. And what's going to happen is that Photoshop is going to try to clone the texture of the clouds and the color of the sky so that when I release, it's like the balloon was never there. Works like magic, doesn't it? And that completes our challenge. For the next challenge, I'm going to be using something similar called Content Aware Move. So I need to activate the picture of the bird. My job here is to move the bird from the left to the right of the image. To do so, I'm going to use tool number 8, and I'm going to select the 5th tool from the top called Content Aware Move. With this tool, I'm going to make a selection of the bird, similar to what I was doing with the patch tool. The only difference is that I'm going to be dragging this over, and when I drag it over, the bird is not going to disappear. He's literally going to move. I noticed I made a little mistake right over here, so I'm going to Control D and make my selection all over again. With the same tool selected, I'm literally clicking and dragging it over. Now there's going to be areas that don't quite add up, so you can see how the branch right under the bird doesn't really match the direction of the branch in the original image. For the moment, I'm not going to stress about that. I'm just going to move the bird over significantly. When I release and I verify that this is the location that I want, I'm going to press a check mark in the options bar. And in so doing, the original bird will have disappeared, and now the bird has been cloned and placed on this section. Does it look perfect? No. As you can see, the branch got disconnected, so it doesn't look realistic anymore. However, I'm not stressing out about that. I'm moving on to my next challenge because I completed the task, which was to move the bird over. My next challenge, I'm going to be selecting the picture of the eyes under the red eye artboard. You guys are too young to understand what this refers to, but back in the day when we had film cameras, a person was likely to get red eyes, this red eye phenomenon, when they stared at the flash of the camera. Modern day cameras don't really produce this effect as much anymore. However, because this was so common, Photoshop created a tool that specifically fixes the red eye problem. I'm going to right click on tool number 8 again, and I'm going to select the last option, which is red eye tool. With the red eye tool, this is literally all I'm going to do. I'm just going to increase the pupil size a little bit to about 96%, and then I'm just going to double click inside of the pupil, and you guys will see that the red eye is now gone. I'm going to do the same thing for the right pupil. Red eye is now gone, so the eyes look more realistic now. That literally completes your challenge. How easy is that? For my next challenge, I'm going to be talking about color replacement options. So I'm going to be selecting this image of the yellow car. What I want to do here is I actually want to change the color of the car from yellow to a different color altogether. So you guys could change it to red, green, blue, any color that appeals to you. To do so, I'm going to be using tool number 9. I'm going to right click on tool number 9 and I'm going to ignore these painting tools. So brush, pencil, and mixer brush are more for the purposes of digital painting, which we will be looking into in a future class. For right now, I'm going to select tool number 3 from this drop-down menu and I'm going to select color replacement tool. This tool will allow me basically to go and change the color to any other color from my swatches panel. As you can see, my brush is tiny. I can't even see it. So in my options bar, I'm going to go and increase the size of my brush from 13 pixels to about 150 pixels so that you guys can see the difference. Then at the bottom of my swatches, right over here in my toolbar, I'm going to change the top swatch from yellow to a different color. So let's say I want the color to be pink. And I click OK, and then I can basically go and paint over different sections of the car. And the cool thing about this tool is that it's going to keep the reflections on the metal. It's going to keep differences in value. You do want to be careful though, because if you go outside of the car, you're going to end up inadvertently painting the grass. So tell you what, I'm going to start over by making this image a little bit more precise. I'm going to use my quick selection tool to select the actual subject or the car. This will prevent me from painting outside of the car and into the grass. Then when I go and use my tool number 9 or my color replacement tool, I'm basically going to be painting within the confines of those marching ants, so I'm unable to go outside of the actual shape of the car. You do want to be careful not to paint over things like the tires or the glass. You just want to basically replace the color of everything yellow in the car. So take your time and try to make it as precise as possible. Alright, not bad. I'm going to hit Control D to get rid of that selection and take a look at my work. So if I zoom in on little areas like this in the tire where it has this yellow detail, and if I zoom in on areas right here in the fender where it does have a little bit of the yellow poking through, again, it's not perfect. But I was able to complete the job, which was to replace most of the yellow in the car. And you can see how it doesn't look painted on. It looks like it's intentional. It looks like this was the original factory made color, because it was able to retain a lot of the reflections and shadows in the surface of the metal. So my friends, as far as I'm concerned, I'm done with this particular challenge. I'm ready to use my hand tool so that I can pan over and work on challenge number 6. For my clone stamp challenge, I'm going to select the layer called cat. And my job here is to basically try to give this little cat some friend. I'm going to be cloning this cat approximately 3 or 4 times here and filling up the entirety of this image with cats. So cat lovers, get ready because this is your challenge. We're going to be using tool number 10, and if I right click on tool number 10, you guys are going to see 2 tools that are available. We have clone stamp and pattern stamp. I'm going to select the option called clone stamp. As you can see, my brush size is tiny. You can barely see it. It's an itty bitty dot. So in the options bar, I'm going to increase the pixel size from 21 to 200 approximately. Scratch that. I'm going to do 300. What I actually want to do is drag my mouse over the cat by holding down Alt on your keyboard or Option if you're on a Mac like me. And you guys will see that when I hold down Option or Alt, you guys are going to see like a little target. Your cursor is replaced with a little target. When you guys see that target, you guys are going to drag over the cat. Drag over the ears, the legs, the tail, whatever. Then when you let go, you're going to be able to basically paint in the cat elsewhere. Now I also painted in some of the grass, so it is a little inconsistent here with the texture of the field. But again, those are minor inconveniences and I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to try again, holding down Alt on a Windows computer and then dragging over the cat when you guys see that little target cursor. dragging over the ears, the legs, and so forth, so that I'm able to paint said cat elsewhere in the composition. How cool is that? Look at the magic of Photoshop. I just gave this cat several different friends. Actually, I just gave the cat, I guess they're quadruplets now because there are 4 of them. So you guys could literally fill the entire field with cats. As far as I'm concerned, I was able to complete the challenge. I gave the cat some friends using the clone stamp tool, and I'm ready to move on. Using my hand tool and my options in my toolbar, I'm going to go and pan over to my 8th challenge, which is going to be the pattern stamp tool. For the pattern stamp tool, it basically will allow me to paint in several different patterns into a selected area in my image. So as you can see, the woman in this particular picture is standing against an ugly wall. It looks basically really like damaged. So I'm going to give her a cute backdrop to take a picture against. Before I use the pattern stamp tool, what I want to do is I want to make a selection of the woman so that I can make my painting a little bit more precise. I'm going to be using tool number 4, once again, the quick selection tool, and I'm going to click select subject in the options bar. Then you guys will see the marching ants all around the image of the woman. But I don't want to paint the inside of the woman. I want to paint the outside. So I'm going to reverse the selection. To do so, I'm going to go to the select menu at the top of my workspace, and I'm going to select the option that says inverse. When I click inverse, you guys will see that now there's marching ants around the image as well. I'm going to be using my tool number 10. I'm going to select pattern stamp tool, and before I start painting, I'm going to select a different pattern. You don't have a lot of patterns installed on Photoshop by default. There's going to be one called trees, grass, and water. In a future project, I will show you guys how you can install new patterns and how you can create your own custom patterns. But for now, we're just going to use one of the ones that are included in Photoshop by default. So if I click in the folder called trees here in the options bar, you can see a few different options for patterns that I can use that are more nature oriented. Under grass, same thing, very nature oriented, and underwater, something similar except it looks like water ripples. Just for kicks, I'm going to be using this one of trees. I want my brush size to be fairly big, so right now it's set to about 300 pixels, but I'm going to increase the size to about 1000. While that may seem like a lot, it's just going to speed up the process. So with this very large brush, I'm just going to go and basically paint the outside around this woman, and what that's going to do is it's going to paint the pattern in. Now that I'm done, I'm going to hit Ctrl D to get rid of that selection. And as you can see, I just gave this woman a much prettier backdrop to take a picture against. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm ready to move on to my very last challenge. For my history challenge, I'm going to click inside of the flowers layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to apply the ugliest, tackiest filter that I can possibly think of. I'm going to be using the filter menu at the top of my workspace, and we're going to deal with a lot of these filters later on. We're going to examine what each of them does, what each of these libraries allows you to do to an image. But for now, I'm going to click inside your basic filter gallery. And the filter gallery is not wrong by default, it's just a little tacky. What it does is that it allows you to place very quick and easy edits to an image to make it look kind of like you drew it by hand or that it's textured somehow. So there's different libraries of filters, some called artistic, which are made to make it look more hand-drawn. Some look a little bit like neon. So for the moment, just because it's so dramatic, I'm going to select this filter called Stylize Glowing Edges, which makes the image look like neon. And I'm going to click OK. Now as you can see, we made a huge difference to the original image, but that's not what this challenge is all about. This challenge is using a tool to help us restore the original image content. What I actually want to do in order to show you the difference with this tool is I'm going to use my marquee tool, and I'm going to drag out a selection of a part of the image. So what I want to do is I want to restore everything inside of this circle to the original. Then, having made that selection, I'm going to be going to tool number 11. I'm going to select the history brush tool. As you can see, my brush size is pretty small, so in the options bar, I'm going to increase it from 86 pixels to about 400. And then I'm going to paint in the inside of the selection. And what this history brush tool does is that any selected area in the image will be automatically restored to its original pixel data. So everything that was inside of the selection has been perfectly restored. Everything outside of the selection is still showing that really tacky filter. I'm going to get rid of the selection so that you guys can aptly see the difference between the two. And that, my friends, completes your history challenge. I'm going to zoom out and take a look at the differences that I made. For spot healing, I was able to remove most of the acne on her face. For remove, I was able to get rid of the tattoos on her arm. For patch, I basically made it seem like the balloon was never there. For content aware move, I moved the bird from the left side of the branch to the right side. For red eye, I eliminated the red eye phenomenon of earlier film cameras when you stared at the flash. For color replacement, I made an adorable Barbie car by changing the yellow to pink. For clone stamp, I gave this cat some friends by making clones of its original. For pattern stamp, I used the pattern stamp tool to basically paint in this tree pattern in the background. And for the history challenge, I was able to restore part of the original image after I applied this ugly filter behind it. So now that I'm done with all 9 challenges, I'm ready to export my final draft. You're going to go to File, Export, and we're going to select the option that says Artboards to PDF so that I can export each challenge as a different page in a PDF document. I'm going to select my desktop as my destination for now, and then I'm going to make sure that I change the file name and I call this, just for kicks so I know who it is, Liz's Edited Destructive Tools Challenge. I want to make sure that in options, this is selected where it says multi-page document, and I'm going to click run. As you know, Photoshop is going to parse through all this data, so it's going to look like it's blinking. Don't freak out. It's supposed to do that. It's supposed to look like it's blinking because Photoshop is processing your request to create a multi-page document. Now that it's done, it's going to give me this little pop-up message saying Artboards to PDF was successful, so that I can preview it. For some reason, it looks as if the last artboard was made the first page in this PDF, but I'm not mad about that. It's really not that big of a deal because if I keep pressing the down arrows, I can see that each of my images was added as separate pages to the PDF document. So that, my friends, means that I am 100% done. You guys are going to upload your final multi-page PDF to Schoology to submit to me for evaluation. Hope you guys enjoyed learning about these pixel modifying tools. Hit me up if you have any questions. Until then, peace out.